My name is Morgan. I am the head of student career services here at CodePath.org, coming to you from sunny San Francisco, California. Today, we're hosting a panel on how to land your first software engineering role. So if you're looking for an internship or a full-time job and this is your first time out, this is the event for you. And we're so happy to have you here with us. Before I introduce our panelists, I just want to give a quick run of show. So we're going to start off by introducing our amazing guests for the evening and giving each of them a little bit of time to introduce themselves. I have some questions planned for the panelists based on all of your submissions when you RSVP'd for the event. So we took the kind of most commonly asked questions and summarize those into categories, and we're going to go through those first. And then at the end, we're going to have about 20 minutes where we can do some live Q&A. So for those of you who are brave enough and engaged enough, we would love for you to use the raise your hand feature, which you can find in Zoom at the bottom of the window. I think if you go to chat, and there's a raise your hand feature there. And then we'll call on your name and you can come on the mic, introduce yourself, say where you're going to school, what class year you are, and then ask your question. It's under reactions. Thank you, Jason. See, I should know Zoom by now. All right. So let's get started. So first, I'm going to have our panelists introduce themselves. I'm going to go in alphabetical order. So first, can we have Eileen from Intuit? Can you introduce yourself?
Thanks, Morgan. Hey, everyone. I'm Eileen. I'm a university recruiter at Intuit out of the San Diego office. Was there anything else you wanted us to go over? Was that it?
No, that's good. Let's do a fun question. What is the last movie you watched on Netflix? If you have Netflix.
I'm binging Schitt's Creek right now.
Ooh, good show. Good show. It won a lot of Emmys this year. Thank you, Eileen. All right, next we have Bianca Martinez from Bloomberg.
Hi, everybody. My name is Bianca Martinez. I'm a recruiter on the engineering campus team at Bloomberg, headquartered in New York City. Last movie I watched, so trying to come up with all the Oscars, get up to speed. The last movie I saw was Sound of Metal. Highly recommend that.
Oh, that's the one where the drummer goes deaf, right? Wow, yeah. I gotta see that. Awesome. Thank you, Bianca. Okay, which letter comes next in the alphabet? All right, I think it's Jeannie from Hewlett Packard Enterprises. Can you introduce yourself?
Yes, good evening. Good morning, everybody. I'm Jeannie Laudriere. I'm with Hewlett Packard Enterprise, and I live in sunny Navarre, Florida, which is just southeast of Pensacola. I've been recruiting for 20 years, and I'm trying to think what the name of it was that I watched last night, but it was Hulu, it wasn't Netflix. But we're getting ready for Dune to come out, so that's exciting around the house.
I was so excited for Dune to come out last Christmas. I read the entire book in a month, which was hard. It's like 800 pages, and then they moved it back. I was crushed, but I'm very excited for that movie too. All right, and then last but not least, we have Lizzy from MathWorks.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lizzy Habermel, and I am a university or campus recruiter. And I am just outside of Boston on the East Coast. And I actually don't watch too many movies. I tend to fall asleep before they end. So my husband typically has some sort of sport event on TV. Right now, he's watching the Bruins. So I usually just go along with that.
Nice. Yeah, I'm also getting to the point where it's hard to actually stay awake through a movie. So I try to watch them before the sun goes down. Awesome. Thank you so much to our panelists for being here tonight and for sharing your expertise and your best practices with our students. All right, before we get started, I'm just going to set the scene. I have a polling question. I'm going to launch this polling question, and we'll be able to see your responses as they come in. And so the question is, how many of you have completed a technical internship before? And so that can be software engineering, mobile development, web development, cybersecurity. What else is there? Data analytics, technical consulting. Wow, okay, we actually have about a fourth of the crowd, 30% of the crowd has completed an internship before. Awesome. Okay, great to know. So for those of you who are new, I hope that this is new and helpful information. For those of you who've gotten one before, I hope that this makes the job search easier for you in the future. All right, so we're going to jump into these questions. So these questions did come from students. I'm going to ask our panelists for 1 to 2 of you to answer each question. So if there's a question you feel like you don't have an answer, or you don't have a strong opinion, you can abstain. And if you have a really strong opinion, we would love to hear it. All right, so let's jump in. So the first topic is just going to be general when we're applying to internship positions. What should students share on their resume when they do not have prior technical work experience? What can they share that still demonstrates their candidacy for an internship?
I can take a shot at this
Awesome.
question. So what can they share if they don't have technical work experience? So any academic experience would be great. Project experience that you learn in school, that's helpful. For students too, I always tell students like high school counts. So it's something that you were passionate about and completed. You can also put that on your resume.
And any leadership opportunities that they've done, whether they were, again, a president of a particular club within school, anything that just shows that they are able to play well with others, I guess is a kind way to put it, because so many of our cultures these days are collaborative and you can no longer be an island. And I think if you can show an employer that you can work with others, that's helpful too.
I think it's also, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Go ahead, Lizzy.
I was just going to say it's perfectly appropriate to also spotlight your personal projects. So if you've been working on something outside of school that's relevant to the role, I would also say go for that as well.
I was going to say, feel free to include non-technical work experience too. We want to hear about that. If you've done like customer service or hospitality, anything, it's really relatable and transferable. So you can talk to people, you can collaborate to some of the things that we were saying earlier. So that stuff is definitely relevant. And then you can supplement with personal project, hackathons, student groups, anything else that you're doing. We want to see like the whole 360, not just the tech stuff.
Awesome, thank you. All right, another question that was very popular is for people that have done maybe their own technical projects, their own side projects or projects in class, do recruiters look at those? So when they link their GitHub or if they link to their personal website, do recruiters actually take a look at their technical projects?
I know we did when I was working at Cisco. We did take a look at what the students put in. Unfortunately, one young man sent the URL to a site that he was extremely excited about, but unfortunately it was a porn site. So keep those off of your resume, please. But we do have managers that will take a look at the GitHub accounts to see what the students are doing.
That must have been the worst day of his life.
I know for me personally, I'm not looking at the students' GitHubs, but after I review a resume, it gets passed along to a team of engineers. I know that they're looking at it and they're really excited about it. They think it's just as important maybe as the full resume. And that's something that they can get excited about and talk about in interviews with the students.
I'll plus one that.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I'll plus one that. I agree.
That's great to hear. I think a lot of people don't realize that resume, it gets passed around to a lot of people in the organization, right? It's not just the recruiter that takes a look at it. All right. So for our next questions, these questions are about networking. So the first question is, how can students make their LinkedIn profile more attractive to recruiters?
I would say most importantly, make sure your information is accurate and relevant. I've looked at countless LinkedIn profiles that include incorrect graduation dates or even degrees. And so just at the most basic level, include correct information and make sure you update it. If you finish an internship, make sure to remove present to the date that you finished it. Just really simple things like that, so that when a recruiter is looking at your profile, they know what they're looking at and the information is correct. I'd also say it's immensely helpful when students provide the right level of detail when describing their internships or projects in LinkedIn. Sometimes it can be really easy to just list them without giving any context to what the skill sets that you leveraged, or any type of qualifications that, or skills that you developed in that internship or in that project. So just be mindful that recruiters, if in the absence of a full resume, that is your resume. So just make sure that it's it's comprehensive and helpful to the recruiter.
I'd say, like, in addition to everything that Lizzy just said, 100% agree. Like, using your headliner too, and including like what you're interested in, that's super helpful. And using the LinkedIn features where you can show that you are open to networking, that's super helpful.
Thank you. That's really helpful. And how are recruiters using LinkedIn profiles? Do recruiters actually source candidates using the information in LinkedIn?
I do. Like 90% of my hires come from LinkedIn Recruiter.
Yes.
Agreed.
Simple answer is yes. Update those LinkedIn profiles. And so the next question, so something that I encourage students to do is to reach out, and build their network through LinkedIn. Have you ever had students reach out to you on LinkedIn for, internship or job opportunities? And if so, what were the successful students doing that you would want the students on this call to do as well?
Yeah, I for sure get messages all the time. In my inbox, I probably have like 250 right now. So the ones that I typically can get back to are the ones who make some sort of connection. So like, were you at this CodePath event tonight? Let me know that. Do we have something in common? Do you know something specific about Bloomberg? Like, have you done the research? What are you looking for? I also have a lot of people just asking for general feedback, and they're not like, hey, I want a job at Bloomberg. They're like, I have a couple ideas, or I have a couple questions. Can I generally bounce those ideas off of you? And I'm always willing to help. So I think something like that, that's general, but also like compelling and some connection to me, usually gets the most hits when I'm combing out of my disaster of an inbox.
I think also students have to take responsibility for their own job search. It's really nice and it's very easy to just send a resume over and say, hey, I'm looking for a software engineer. What have you got open? Well, okay, that's nice. You're one of about 3,000 I'm going to be taking a look at this week. What have you done in order to help you? Because your job search is your job.
Definitely agree with that. In terms of getting back to candidates, of course, we always want to get a decision back within a timely manner. But if a candidate applies on a Monday and on Tuesday, they're messaging me on LinkedIn asking for a decision, I think also just being realistic with the timeline, and also, checking your inbox, because most companies are going to, send you some sort of confirmation email once you do submit your application, and then directions or guidelines for how to follow up, whether it's checking a portal or whatever that might be. So just be sure, again, really simple information, but like follow the directions, because it's most likely going to get you to where you want to be.
I think the one thing I have to add, just to like reaching out over LinkedIn, I have a lot of candidates that reach out to leaders, like my CEO, for example, or my CDO, and they do respond, and it does get back to recruiters. So I mean, it's great to get your foot in the door, but it's also great to reach out to potentially the person who's doing the work that you want to get into, instead of the leader, because the leader can get your foot in the door, but then it's like, do you even know what you want? Because then when they come to us, it's like, well, I'm not sure what I want to do. And I'm like, I'm not here to help you to do that. Like Jeannie was saying, right? Do the research, like talk to someone that is in the job that you want to do, because then they can help you and refer you to.
Absolutely. I think that's really key. You should come with information that the recruiter can help you with, not coming with problems that you need them to solve. So in addition to reaching out to recruiters or leadership, another tactic I encourage students to use is reaching out to people in their own networks, especially their alumni networks, because what they may not know is that people working in the job that they want to have may be able to refer them to the recruiter, or to someone who's making a hiring decision. Can you all talk about the role that referrals play in your work when you're looking at candidates?
I think they're huge, especially if they met the student and actually spoke with them. Instead of just saying, yeah, I got this resume over here from Joe Buzzword. I actually met and talked with Joe at a University of XYZ event. He was very articulate. He's looking for this kind of a role. What can you do to help him? And typically, especially if it's an employee referral, we do take a look at those first. But if you sit down and go through a phone book and just write people's names down that they referred you, we have ways to find out that, whether you're telling the truth or not. And if you're untruthful about who referred you, then what else on your resume or in the, what you're producing to us is not the truth.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so my last question around networking, a lot of students were asking, what they can do to stand out if they don't come from a target school. So if you don't go to Stanford or MIT or what have you, but you're competing with those students for the same types of positions, how can they elevate their candidacy in the application or the job search process?
I think attention to detail is what's most helpful here from a recruiter's perspective. So one of the most valuable pieces of feedback that I've personally ever received was to take a really good look at the job description and incorporate what is in the job description and what you know of the role into your resume and customize it for every single role that you apply to. Yes, that's a lot of work, but it'll ultimately pay dividends in the end. It's going to help the recruiter and potentially the hiring manager, whoever sees your resume, process that alignment for your fit for the role and ultimately eliminate any guesswork. Right. The less a recruiter hiring manager has to guess about your background or your expertise, your skill sets, the better. So, for example, if a company you're applying to uses or produces, like we do, we produce a software, and you have proficiency in that software, let's say, it's really smart to include that in your technical skill sets list, right? And just be super targeted. So instead of packing your resume full of a bunch of bullet points, that may or may not be relevant or helpful, I would say pinpoint what you've done, why you did it, and what is the impact or what are the results that you achieved from doing those things, whether they be projects or internships. I would say is most helpful for us.
Mm-hmm.
I think in addition to that, I know in this virtual world it's hard, but attending events and you guys are already at enrolled in CodePath and you're 80% there, just getting yourself in front of employers in some way. So just attending any type of meetup or event that your target company is hosting, and then putting yourself out there and asking questions during those events. Yes, it counts for sure.
I would also say put CodePath on your resume. So sometimes when I'm talking to CodePath students, it's not on there. It should 100% be on there. The work that you're doing through the program is incredible. It's supplementing all of the academic stuff that you're doing already through your university. And it's also a talking point. So that way, we have something in common. We can get into a deeper conversation there.
Awesome. Thank you, Bianca. That actually touches nicely on a question we just got in the chat about, should students show that they've taken courses with DataCamp or Coursera or CodePath, primarily CodePath? And it sounds like the answer is yes.
Yeah, 100%.
And then I did want to touch, this is not in one of the pre-planned questions, but I did want to touch on what Eileen said about going to company events. Can you all share how students can learn about events that your companies put on during the recruiting season?
We usually post on Handshake.
Sorry, go ahead.
It's just on Handshake and open to all schools. We we have like target schools, but we're open to everyone. It's not the school that we're interested, it's the student.
Yeah, for Bloomberg, we have stuff on Handshake, and then you can check out our careers page. In addition to our job postings, we might also have events. And then we also have a profile on Jumpstart with an engineering community within that. I would say that's as close to like a forum as where we're posting all of our live events, and that's open to everybody.
I'd also say keep an eye out for the emails that you receive from any student organizations or affiliations you're a part of. We do a lot of targeted promotion for our events and outreach through different organizations and student groups. So keep an eye out for those emails. Don't let them go unnoticed or to your spam filter or through your spam filter. I'll just really emphasize going to these events is really, really, really important. It's not only going to help educate you on what the company is like and what the role is like, and who's at the company, what a day in the life is, all of that, but it's also going to allow you an opportunity to potentially engage with future community members. So ask good questions, and it definitely doesn't go unnoticed if you attend those events.
Fantastic. All right, let's move on to talking about interviewing, because this is really where a lot of people can get tripped up. So first, let's talk about behavioral interviewing. So when students are doing the phone screen, I know some of them prepare by creating what's called an elevator pitch. Do elevator pitches still matter to you? Are these still an effective way for candidates to kind of communicate their professional background?
I think so, loosely. I think that you should come prepared with like a 1-minute summary of who you are and all the important points that you want to get across to your recruiter. Sometimes we'll start a conversation, we'll be like, tell me about yourself. Pretty vague, but that's where the elevator pitch comes in. The one thing I would say about that is like, try and make it less rehearsed. Like, we recognize that you definitely practice and we're in the mirror beforehand, but when you're in your interview, we want to get to know you. We want to see that human component. So kind of let that guard down. And then just be authentic talking about your experiences. But I would say the elevator pitch is a good place to start, and always to fall back on to start an interview, or if you're at a career fair or something and you do have that limited time.
And do your research before you go into an interview, whether it's a pre-screen with a recruiter or you're actually talking to the VP of development. Example, Hewlett Packard split 5 years ago. I work for Hewlett Packard Enterprise, so we're the software as a system. If somebody comes and I'm doing a phone screen for them, they tell me how much they love their computer, their printer, their laptop, their copier. I know that they didn't do their research because HPE doesn't make those. HPI kept those. So knowing the difference between what has happened to a company, something that went as long as 5 years ago, but definitely get online, get a feel for what's going on now, because that kind of technology and those technical questions are the ones that you're going to want to be talking to about the team that you'd be working with and or the manager that you'd be working for.
And so what about students who get really nervous when talking about themselves? What advice would you give to students who, they're like, oh, I was so excited for that phone screen, and then I just clammed up and it went so poorly. How would you advise students prepare if they know that they're going to be really nervous when they get on that call with you?
I'd say practice. Career Services offers a lot of like, mock interviews, practice with your friends, practice in the mirror, like Bianca was saying, I think that really helps with the nerves. And then just say you're nervous, just tell them like, hey, I'm so sorry. I'm a little nervous right now, Then you just come off really authentic.
I think it's really hard to talk about yourself, right? And, be really proud of what you've done and spend, 1 to 5+ hours talking about yourself the whole day, right? But if there's a time to be comfortable with it or to do that, it's during an interview, it's the whole point, right? But I think it's kind of that like showing and not telling that can be helpful. So, maybe instead of telling the recruiter or telling the hiring manager, you have strong time management skills, you come up with a 1 or 2 examples of a time when you applied those time management skills. So I think that can be, both effective and also make it a little bit easier just to show the recruiter that you have the skill set and you're a good fit for the role, without kind of just like, I'm really good at this, I'm really good at that, I've done this, I've done that. You can give a solid example.
I also think it's important to realize that literally everyone is nervous. It's my job to interview. And then when I'm on the other side of the table, I act like I've never had a conversation before. So just realizing that interviews are daunting for everybody is kind of the first step. And something else that I was doing when I was interviewing is I was taking calls with recruiters that maybe I wasn't the most excited about, and I was using those for practice. So that way, when my dream job did come along, I knew that I had nailed it and that I would be more prepared and more confident. So just using practice, and even if an interview doesn't go well, okay, that was practice for you, and you have more experience under your belt to, nail the next one.
But never let them see that you're using the interview for practice.
Right.
All right. So this is CodePath. So I do want to touch briefly on technical interviewing. And I know that, you all on the call do not do technical interviews, but can you share what common feedback you get from engineering managers who maybe did the technical interview with the candidate and then came back and had some critical feedback? What should students work on improving for these technical interviews?
Sure, there's like a few things that call outs, and they're themes that we see when people don't pass the interview. So number one, while you're coding, articulate your thoughts out loud. So they want to hear what you're thinking while you're coding, so that if you are going off going in a different route, the wrong route, then they can course correct and give you a little nudge in the right direction. If you're not saying what you're doing, then it's just like silence, and they can't help you. Yeah, so I feel like that's like one of the major ones. And then clarifying the question before jumping to solve. I think that's a really big one, because then you can go so far 10 minutes down 10 minutes out of a 30-minute tech interview, and you're like, oh shoot, I don't even understand the question. So I think like those two things can get you pretty far.
Did Eileen cover it?
I think she did a great job.
Wonderful. All right. Well, we'll move along. Okay. So after the interview, a question I get a lot from students is about the follow-up. How should students follow up with you or with the hiring manager after the interview? What should they be putting in their thank you notes?
I like to see thank you notes, if nothing else. Call me old school, but it still goes back to that personal touch, where you are cognizant of the time and respectful of the time that it took for somebody to spend that 15, 20 minutes with you, especially if they've got deadlines looming and things like that. And I think it also sets you apart from the other students, because not a lot of students do that anymore. Granted, you don't write them and use snail mail, but a real quick message to the recruiter saying, thank you for helping to facilitate this. I really enjoyed talking with Dr. So-and-so. Can you please pass along my message to Dr. So-and-so, and then write the message that you would like to send to them if you could. A lot of managers will give you their email addresses. So if you do get that, use it wisely. And again, make sure that you're letting them know how you can fit into the position that they're looking for.
Yeah, +1. I love getting thank you notes. And when we're in the office, I would love getting the cards in the mail.
Yes.
People still do that. It's amazing. And I do, if somebody asks for the interviewer's email addresses, I give it to them. We want to hear from you. So, and for me, it does make you guys stand out.
Definitely. I would say authenticity and customization is really key here. We can tell when you're just copying an online template. So that, I don't want to say that can hurt you, but you know, if you're going to take the time to write the email in the first place, you might as well customize it.
Yeah, I'm not Steve.
I admit I definitely did that at least once or twice when I was in college. Right? And then after you, at least now with Google or with Gmail, they have like the 10-second delay and you can undo. But sitting on that email and just seeing the company name was wrong, I was like, it's over. Okay, well, yeah. We'll move on.
I get Intel sometimes, yes.
I'm sure you get Intel, maybe, what are some other I ones? There are a couple.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So my last question before we open the floor to Q&A, are there any common just like errors that students make? I'm sure well-intentioned that you think just kind of immediately take them out of the running? What are some easy mistakes that students can avoid overall?
Swearing. I had one student, okay, it doesn't bother me quite so much, but I had to have him kind of tone it down a little bit before he went on to anybody else because he would have made a few Marines blush, and that's not the kind of language that you need to be using in an interview. It's okay to use it with your crew or crib or whatever things are going these days, but that's definitely not appropriate for a professional environment.
Yeah, along those lines, getting too comfortable, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what happens. You start swearing. Hopefully you won't start swearing, but sometimes people do get too comfortable and, lose their professionalism during the interview.
Kind of along those same lines, sort of, is just you're going to probably speak with a lot of different people throughout the whole interview process. At any given company that you talk to or that you interview with. So I would say just be mindful that, we are all colleagues and we all speak to each other. So whether you're scheduling your interview with a colleague of mine or whether you are speaking with a hiring manager, it should go without saying, but just, treat everybody with respect, regardless of who you're speaking with, because again, we all talk. We all kind of, hear if something goes awry. And then just another red flag, it is a red flag, is when a student applies to like 15 different roles within the company. It just kind of shows us that you are just throwing your resume out without taking the care and really demonstrating passion, focus, intent, enthusiasm, all of the above for a particular role. So kind of, that can be a little disheartening when you see anyone, not just a student, but anyone apply to, 15 or 20 roles at the same time.
I think an easy, add-on is just being thoughtful. So if I'm interviewing a candidate and I ask them why Bloomberg and their answer is because it's in New York, for me, I just am kind of like, that's crazy. There are millions of companies in New York, like why specifically this organization in New York? And that can easily be remedied by a quick Google search and looking into our philanthropy or looking into our guilds or anything about machine learning, like just something that it's like you did a little bit of research and you're actually excited about this opportunity. I would say would make you stand out from someone else who is maybe giving a canned or very, very basic answer.
All right. Thank you so much, ladies, for your great responses. Okay, we're going to open up for Q&A. I'm going to ask that if you would like to ask a question that you use the raise your hand feature. and then I'm gonna call on you. And that is in the bottom right of the Zoom, and it says raise hand. Okay, let me open the participants. All right, first up we have Horatio. Horatio, can you say your name, what school you go to, in your graduation year, and then ask your question?
Yeah, so my name is Horacio. I go to UC Santa Cruz. I'm currently a junior, so graduating in 2022. And this never happened to me, but what if you have a bad interviewer, like he's just not interested in really like interviewing you? Like, can you request a new one, or you just kind of stuck with that?
I think that's a really good question, and it's tricky, and it definitely does happen. Interviewers are human too. Maybe they're having a bad day or a busy day and they're not fully present, and that stinks on both ends. What I would say is follow up with the person who is helping you schedule your interview after the fact and give some honest but also polite feedback. Maybe they'll offer to reschedule your round, and even if they don't, that's really good feedback for us that we can improve our process to make sure another candidate in your shoes never has that similar experience.
That's good. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we have Benson.
Hi, my name is Benson Anaina. Currently, I'm a senior at the Pennsylvania State University. My question is, what kind of candidates would you be more comfortable advocating for? Because you probably get a bunch of people who request you to advocate for them, but what would make a candidate stand out to you so that you could advocate for them to, like, the hiring managers and the team?
I think being able to communicate, we advocate for those that we think are a good fit. If there's something missing technologically, or technically rather within your background, and we know that it's not going to be a good fit, then we wouldn't necessarily go and advocate for you. But if you've been able to prove that you're strong in the particular skill, that they're a very close match to what the job description says. I think someone was talking earlier about you basically make sure that your correspondence goes with the job description, make sure that your education, that your experience also kind of mirrors the job description while being truthful. So that it makes it a lot easier for us to say, hey, you need to go talk to Benson. Look, but he's got this, you were looking for this particular language or this particular, OOD, then it makes that a whole lot easier rather than just tossing it in and saying, yeah, I'm one of 5,000.
Just to add to that too, passion for the company. We mentioned earlier about doing your research. So if it is a company you're targeting, we want to know why. That would help me to advocate for you.
Thank you. All right, next we have Yu Peng.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. So my question is, what should I do if a recruiter is too busy and forgets to get back to me? Because I know that ghosting is something that's very frustrating among many applicants, and I'm just curious as to what your thoughts are on this.
I think it depends where in the process you are. I mean, really, if the recruiter says, we'll get back to you within 3 to 5 business days or by a certain point, I think that if that sort of window has passed kind of egregiously, if you're now 2 weeks out from that point, I think it's appropriate to politely check in and just say that you're checking in for, just an update on your application, especially like if they've given you a specific timeline. I think that's totally doable and okay.
All right, thank you.
All right, next we have Sabrina.
Hi, my name is Sabrina. I'm a senior at Notre Dame de Namur out here in California in the Bay. My question was, when you 100% match the description, does that deter you from wanting to hire them Like, for example, if I apply for a job that's asking for 2 years of work experience and I don't have that, how would you respond to my application?
I would still take a look to see if there's something that you've done that I can give you credit for when it comes to that. And just also kind of a side note here, they've done a study and found that women will only apply for a position if they think that they fill maybe 50% of the requirements, where 90% of the males will apply for it if they even meet only 10%. So as a female, don't give up simply because it's not a 100% match. The other thing is you might not be a 100% match, but the manager's not looking for 100%. Maybe they're looking for 75 or 80%. You just don't know from reading it what the manager is. It's a gotta have and what's a nice to have, which we have a little more insight into that. They're willing to negotiate a little, if you will, when it comes to the skill sets. So again, this particular role is going to be focused more on teams. They're looking for some of those soft skills, but you can't put it out there, on a resume necessarily that says, yeah, I got good communication skills. I can't spell worth a heck, but I got good ones. So, and some of those seem a bit bizarre, but I've been recruiting for 20 years, so you'd be surprised what I've seen. But definitely don't give up and try. Like I said, you don't have to meet 100%, but the manager might not be looking for 100%.
Thank you. That's funny. You read my mind. That's the exact same thing I was thinking when I was writing that question down.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, next we have Jay Trang.
Hey there. So my question is it possible in an interview if I show like I have skills in 2 different areas, and even though I applied to one, the recruiter might put me into another? Like, for example, let's say I reach out to Eileen and I show that I have technical skills and financial skills. I might get turned down for the technical role, but would she put me into the financial role instead?
I think the way we recruit at Intuit's a little different because when during the pre-screening process, we do find out where your interest lies, and if it's both, then you would probably go in both pools. So you would go in the finance side and the technical side.
So
each company is different, though.
Okay, so that means it's possible I might have 2 separate interviews, or
Correct.
they might.
Yeah.
Okay, but some might have one interview for everything as well. So it all depends on.
Yeah, it depends on the role. I mean, if you're looking, for example, if you're looking for a software engineering role, you would only have one interview. But if you're looking for like a software engineering role, then, or maybe you're potentially looking for like, I don't know, a product management role, it's 2 different functions. So you'll be interviewing for 2 different roles.
Got it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jay. Next, we have Daniel.
Hi, guys. Thanks for coming to or hosting this event today. So my name is Daniel. I'm a senior at UC San Diego, majoring in business and with a minor in computer science. My question I had today was, since I'm coming from a non-traditional background with my minor in computer science, how do I stand out within a competitive applicant pool, especially with a lot of computer science majors? Right now, I have a personal portfolio and my own website and a couple projects, as well as CodePath. Is there anything else that I can do to stand out to you guys recruiters? Thanks.
So I think that what you're doing is great. I wouldn't say you necessarily have to add anything onto that. I think that if I'm speaking for Bloomberg specifically, we're open to candidates who aren't CS majors. We're open to minors. We're open to tangential majors. As long as you've done coding to some extent, we want to see you and apply, and we're excited about you, especially if you have a business or econ background that meshes well with what we do at Bloomberg. So I think you're hit it on the head there with that one.
Cool. Thank you so much. All right, I'll continue applying.
Yeah, it's all about persistence, unfortunately. So it sounds like you're doing all the right things. So just keep going. Next, we have Samuel.
Hello, everyone. My name is Samuel Ej. I'm a second-year computer science student from the University of Ghana. So my question is, are candidates from Africa disadvantaged in any way Because I know like there's a lot of advocacy for like diversity and all, but like I've seen a lot of diversity programs just focusing on Black people in the United States. And like, what's like the role of getting a visa from, say, a candidate from Ghana applying to like Palantir in the United States? Like, how does that work, and how is the candidate disadvantaged in terms of that?
I know at HPE, we don't hire anybody who's not currently living in the country in which they're going to work. So if you're going to school in Ghana, then, unless you're applying for a position within Ghana, we probably wouldn't consider your resume. But if you were a student at UC San Diego and you happen to be from Ghana, well, you'd be over here as an F1 student and you would be treated like all of the other international students. When it comes to recruiting, whether it's an international or not, we just don't happen to hire anybody that we'd have to relocate internationally.
On the other side of that, at Bloomberg, we do offer sponsorship, and then we also offer relocation. So I don't think it's a disadvantage at all to live internationally.
All right, thank you. So the next we have Avish.
Hi, my name is Avish. I'm currently a student at Stony Brook University. I'm on track to graduate in 2023. I just had a question about cover letters. So I actually have two questions about it. How much do cover letters matter? And what would an ideal cover letter be? So what would it include?
In short, this is going to vary from company to company, recruiter to recruiter, and probably role to role, I would imagine. But I read a lot of resumes and look at a lot of applications. Unfortunately, I can't look at, thousands and thousands of cover letters. So I would say, the documents that we're looking at, primarily are your resume, the actual application that you put together. And I would also say what might even be more helpful is to have a copy of your transcript, your academic transcript, so that we can see what kinds of courses that you've taken.
Thank you so much.
Okay, next we have Sasan.
Hey everyone, my name is Shashank, and I guess I just want to start off by saying this is my first event attending via CodePath, and I just want to say I'm learning a lot. But a little about me is I go to Rutgers University, I'm studying computer science, and I'll be a rising junior here. And I'm currently co-oping here at Colgate-Palomalo, working as a software engineer. And the question I have is, I took many interviews. Now, what's come across it is how you deal with a disgruntled teammate. And I'm just curious on what you guys look for in an ideal candidate to go about this question.
So this is a question, that comes up a lot, and in different forms, right? Obviously, a lot of the work that you'll do after graduating is going to be in a team or collaborative setting. So it's important that you know how to, kind of navigate conflict, because that's ultimately going to arise. So I would say, instead of focusing on what the actual conflict was, I would say focus on what the resolution was and what your personal contribution to resolving that conflict was. So, I would just kind of make it all about you and what you did to actually help overcome that challenge in the group, or help solve that, solve that problem in your team. I hope that's helpful.
Sweet. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Next we have Ezekiel.
Hi, my name is Ezekiel Solar. I'm a sophomore at Bloomfield College. My question was, does it matter the coursework that someone who wants to apply for your job, do you guys take a look at the coursework they took that they completed in college? So not necessarily their major, but like if someone had a strong background in math, or someone took various computer science courses, is that something that like sets them apart or gives them the edge?
We do look at your coursework, and if you've taken data structures and algorithms, that's a good indication that you would do well on our interview. If you hadn't taken it, that doesn't mean we won't consider you. It's just helpful if you have.
All right, next up we have Rahul.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, perfect. So I'm Rahul. I'm a freshman at UMD, University of Maryland, College Park. And I have a really simple question. So honors like Eagle Scout and stuff like that, do they matter in an application? Or is it like something you look for, or is it any benefit?
I think it helps you stand out. If I see Eagle Scout, I'm like, oh wow, they have like, a different set of skills to bring to the table.
I see.
Any
Thank you.
extracurriculars? I thought I saw a question on extracurriculars. Definitely put all of that down. Leadership experience.
Awesome. All right, next we have Medha.
Hi, can you guys hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
Good. First of all, thank you so much, CodePath, for organizing this event. And a little bit more about me. I just graduated from Penn State in December with a major in data science and a minor in mathematics. And I actually have I have 3 questions, which aren't really long, so I hope you can answer them for me. My first question is, for a resume, right? I did do a couple of internships in the past during my school year, like 4 or 5 internships, and I've had a lot of leadership experiences and projects and things like that. Do you see 2-page resumes as like a like a red flag, or like how do you guys take that? And then I'll ask the second question after you guys answer that. I think that would be easier.
I think it's going to depend on your background. If you're a PhD student, that's very common to have multiple pages of publications and things like that on your resume. So I think it's just going to depend on your background. And just going back to my point from earlier, if you are just filling your resume with a lot of stuff, a lot of noise, that can actually detract from, from being a good resume. So I would say just make sure that it's relevant. If you go onto 2 pages, I don't think it's the end of the world, as long as it's relevant and valuable.
Okay, sounds good. And my second question is, I think Lizzy mentioned before that if a candidate applies for like 15 roles, it just is like it doesn't look really good to the recruiter when they kind of sort through the resumes, like to that person's application and things like that. But me, I was actually a computer science major for the first 2 years, and then I switched my major to data science to get more experience and things like that. So I feel like I could be a good fit for like a software engineering role, or like a data analyst role or data science role. So how many roles do you think can a candidate apply at a time, like in a course of 6 months or so? Like, what do you think is a good number?
I think if you're truly a good fit for the roles and you think that you are qualified, you should apply to as many as you feel like makes sense. I don't want to put words in Lizzy's mouth, but I think what she was thinking and what I'm thinking is, if you go on our website and you just want to work at, the company, and you apply to 20 roles and one of them makes absolutely no sense for your background, it's kind of like, it's not thoughtful. So I think it's as long as you're being selective and making sure it aligns with your background and skill set, apply to as many as you think.
Sounds good. And my last question, I promise. How has recruitment efforts changed for international students pre-COVID and post-COVID? Like, how is just because a lot of visa restrictions, things like that. So how has it changed with If anyone can talk a little bit more about that, just to give gain a little bit more perspective on how recruiters have changed their perspective after COVID and budget issues, all that kind of things came up.
I know at HPE for this year, post-COVID, when we're looking at resumes, there were a lot of students that were affected in 2020 that they had internships and the companies then reneged on them from that angle. HPE didn't, but we do take a look with an understanding that not everybody had the good fortune to work for a company that was going to support them over that summer. So if you've done an externship, or what else did you do over that summer? Did you take a course, where you enrolled at CodePath and learning something else, reading something to improve yourself? That comes into play. Now, whether you're an international student or US citizen, that's based on role by role and manager by manager. And typically, I know where I've been working, that the technical positions are the ones that have a higher success of hiring an international student than, say, somebody in marketing or finance, because it's hard to kind of defend to the US government why you couldn't find a US citizen to do that position.
All right, thank you, Medha. So that's all the time we have for questions. Thank you so much to our panelists for answering our questions. Before we let you all go, I do want to share about a CodePath course we have coming up this summer. It is called Technical Interview Prep. Sal, if you can share the screen. Perfect, thank you. So this is a class that we run every summer, which helps students prepare to ace technical interviews. So if you're trying to work at Bloomberg or HPE or Intuit or MathWorks, this is a class that you should sign up for right now. It runs from June to August. It's a 12-week class. It's 100% free. And students who come out of this class, typically they have more than one offer when they go into finding internships or full-time jobs. Usually they have multiple. So it's going to teach you how to prepare for interviews, but it's also going to prepare you to be a really strong engineer. And the companies on this call have all participated in our virtual career fair, which comes up at the end of the technical interview prep class. The next one will be in September. So if you're looking to get in front of these wonderful recruiters that we have here and the many others that work with CodePath, that's another great reason to consider taking this class. So I want to thank all of you so much for your time this evening. Thank you so much to Jeannie, Lizzy, Eileen, and Bianca for your time and for giving your great advice to these students. And I hope to see you all at another event soon. And the last thing I know that they want me to share is that we will be running this panel again next Thursday, the 22nd, with 4 different companies. So if you have more questions that went unanswered, you can join us again next week. Thank you so much and have a great evening.
Thank you, Morgan.